everyone, and welcome to my channel, Great Light Rising. In this episode, we're talking about Earth's Great Ascension, the ascension into 4th and 5th D. You may have heard people talking about that. Some call it the shift, and some call it the Great Awakening. What the heck is it? Is it a real thing? And how is it impacting each and every one of us? Because it is impacting us. As humans, we are part of Earth's biosphere, and when Earth changes, we are impacted. And Earth is definitely changing. The most notable thing is that we are raising our vibration. This means that more and more of us are tuning into spiritual things and finding our zen with the universe. And more of us are tuning into our psychic abilities and our psychic awareness. And if you're listening to this, then you are most likely already on your way, and you may have questions. But even people who are not taking a spiritual turn are still feeling the ascension, and you'll notice it in different ways. One way is in how they eat. More people are turning to healthier options like natural and organic foods and vegan or vegetarian diets. This is not just a fad. This is an innate drive to commit to a healthier lifestyle. And that's part of people's vibration rising, even though they might not be spiritual people, because it's happening on different levels. And people are also becoming kinder. And when I say this, don't look at the small picture on this one, because there are some very angry people out there, and they are yelling louder than those of us who are not angry or protesting some cause or another. If you take a look around and open your eyes and pay attention, you will see that on the whole, people are getting kinder. For example, new parents are much gentler with their children than older generations used to be. And even young children, some of them, are not tolerating the old ways of being yelled at or smacked around by their parents. The children being born today are loving and forgiving, and we'll talk about that a bit more later in this episode. For now, let's start with where we were yesterday. So the word yesterday I'm using in a relative sense, not a literal sense. I'm using it as a loose term for some time in the past, which might be a different point in time for you than it was for me, because the shift has been going on for a while, and some people started to shift many years ago, while others are only just beginning. So yesterday is before you shifted, and today is while you have started to shift, or if you have already made a full shift into 4D. And some people are not going to shift. They're going to remain in 3D for the duration. And we're not going to judge them or blame them or criticize them in any way, because they are still going to make the shift when it is right for them. And that might be in a future lifetime, not in this lifetime. We're also not going to judge who that would be. So I'm trying to make the point here that it's not necessarily only those who are spiritually awakened who are going to make the shift, because all of us are sensing in some way the raising of vibration, and some of us are expressing that spiritually, and others are expressing it in different ways. So it's not for us to judge who is in 3D, who is in 4D, who is in 5D. But yesterday, again using that term loosely, we were for the most part a religious church-going people. We obeyed the law, we believed in our government and in our education system, we towed the line, we kept our heads down, our noses clean, and we taught our children about Santa Claus and then laughed with them when they found out he wasn't real. What we didn't know is that we are all being fed a much more nefarious Santa Claus story, and some of us are still in the believing. Many of us are waking up and realizing we've been fed a bunch of lies. So the awakening is a general concept that many of us are going through. We're awakening to the realization that our minds have been programmed into certain beliefs, and now we are questioning those beliefs. The awakening is taking place on multiple different levels, and some of us are in all of the levels, and some of us are only in one or two of the levels. The different levels have to do with realizing that life for us on Earth has been controlled in every aspect, including what we've been told about religion, medicine, science, education, life beyond Earth, and so much more. I don't want to get bogged down in all of the details of all the levels. In this show, I'm talking more about the spiritual aspects of the awakening rather than political, medical, scientific, educational beliefs that have been propagated, because that's what my thing is. This channel is about the spiritual path, the great light rising, the spiritual light. All belief systems are divisive, and spirituality is no less divisive of a topic than politics. If you've been raised in a very religious family, you'll know that's true. This is because those who have not awakened are still in the programmed mind. So be kind and courteous to everyone. Don't try to press your beliefs on someone who's not ready to go there. This is one of the hardest parts about awakening. And I certainly had a very hard time with this around my family. And I've learned through experience that it's kinder to just stay away from divisive topics around the dinner table, as it were, if your family is not going in the same direction as you are spiritually, or in any other area for that matter. Everything we experience is governed by the universal laws as described by Hermes the Great. Hermes described 7 laws that govern our entire universe. These are by no means the only laws that govern the universe, but what is interesting about them to me is that they cover the entire universe. As above, so below. All is in accordance with the 7 laws, whether you're in the outer reaches of space, beyond the solar system, or here on Earth. I have a video on that on my YouTube channel, at Great Light Rising, and you'll find many other videos on that topic too. In a broader perspective, there are laws of quantum mechanics, or quantum physics, many of which we haven't even discovered yet, or some that we have discovered, but mainstream science hasn't accepted yet. These are often referred to as pseudoscience by disparaging websites like Wikipedia or WebMD. That's often how you know it's something worth exploring and learning more about. God is the divine physicist with complete mastery over mind and matter. That's what they mean by omnipotent, which means all-powerful, and omniscient, which means all-knowing. They say God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-loving. To me, that's the ultimate mastery of mind, beyond ego, with knowledge of the laws of quantum physics and how to make them work in your favor. Just like Jesus being able to turn water into wine. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself how he did that? He used the power of his consciousness, which was more advanced than ours, and his knowledge of the universal laws, which he had studied in his years of traveling in the East, before returning to Galilee to fulfill his earthly mission. But we are learning to do those kinds of things now too, and some of us are becoming very good at co-creating with the universe. So God, acting in coherence with the laws of physics, which some might say he created, can do anything he wants to, create anything he wants to. By the way, don't get hung up on pronouns here if I say he for God. God has both genders. He, she is the perfect integration of both yin and yang. So don't think I'm trying to describe God as a male energy or some man sitting on a throne in the sky. There are various proofs, I won't get into right now, that the face of God is the face of love, that love is the primordial building block of the universe, and ultimately we are all seeking a return to the oneness, to ultimate unity with that universal love. And that's the same thing that Jesus came to teach us when he was called Jesus Christ, because the Christ consciousness is a state of pure love, where we accept each other without judgment and without ego. I'm not talking about Christianity or religion. There was no Christianity when Jesus was on earth. That came later, just as Buddhism was not a religion when Buddha was here. And in fact, one of the things Buddha wanted was for people not to create a religion around his teachings, which he intended as a philosophy, as guidelines for a healthy and loving life, not a religion. He specifically said, don't turn my teachings into a religion. But there you are, against his wishes, a religion was created with rules and dogma that were not in Buddha's original teachings. And that was 500 years before Christ was born. And a religion was created around the teachings of Jesus too, except his teachings were modified in favor of putting power in the hands of the Roman Empire before they were brought to the world. And this power is still being spread to all the corners of the world through Christian missionaries who believe they are doing good, but actually they are only propagating the belief matrix of religious dogma. Individually, they are good people, so I'm not blaming them, but I am pointing out that missionary work is not what you think. Look at what happened in South America with all the native peoples being converted to Catholicism from ancient mystical and shamanic belief systems that were actually healthier for humanity and that now we are opening our eyes back up to. We're moving back to those shamanic teachings as we awaken. So against this backdrop, let's talk about the Ascension and what all these dimensions are, 3D, 4D, and 5D. These are the terms that are being bandied around right now. It's being said in all sorts of places that we are ascending from 3D into 4D and 5D. So let's deep dive on that. 3D is where we were yesterday. Remember, I'm using the concept of yesterday loosely because time is relative to your personal experience of where you are in the shift. So some people are still in 3D, and some people have begun the move to 4D, and some people have been in 4D for some time. Unless you are some kind of saint, the chances are you will be in all three dimensions simultaneously, because the dimensions that we are talking about are levels of awareness and states of being, and no one is static. We have moods, we have emotional dramas and challenges, and we have external events that impact us. A big emotional upset can quickly downshift us from 4D back into 3D, but then we might stabilize, process our stuff, and then move back up into 4D. With some part of our awareness in 5D here and there, this is how it works. In 3D, we are in survival mode. We are operating from the third chakra, the solar plexus. We can call this third dimension or third density. From now on, I'm going to use the word density because dimension is a loaded word. I'm not talking about length and width and height and the fourth dimension of time. I'm talking about levels of awareness. And the third density is a level of awareness governed by the solar plexus chakra, the third chakra. The first three chakras are physical chakras that ground us in reality, ground us in our life here on earth. These are the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus chakra. The upper three chakras are more related to the spiritual or higher planes of existence. The throat is related to spiritual wisdom. The brow chakra, or third chakra, is related to our intuitive guidance from spirit, and our crown chakra connects us in to all that is. Now, all of the chakras also relate to the physical body as well. So, for example, the solar plexus chakra governs the digestive system, and the throat chakra, which is the fifth chakra, relates to our thyroid, our throat, and so on. But our chakras are complex energies that form a bridge of sorts between our physical bodies and our energetic bodies. Our energetic bodies contain many layers, some of which endure beyond the physical, like our astral body, which is capable of leaving the physical body and returning to it. This is what happens when people have an out-of-body experience, and it happens while we're dreaming too. So I'm going down a bit of a rabbit hole here, so I'll pull myself back into talking about third density. We've said that third density is about survival. When we're living in third density reality, we are walking on the treadmill of life, worrying about work and money, struggling to feed our families, to put a roof over our head, hold on to a job, maintain decent relationships with other people, keep ourselves alive, and generally deal with the practical aspects of living. Along life's path, we might have been born into a religion or adopted a religion, and we have been absorbed into the accepted norms of the culture we are born into. So, for example, if you went to school in America and were raised in America, you are raised into the culture of prom. Most people attend a prom when they graduate high school, or you might be one of those who found a reason to break free from the prom culture and avoided your high school prom, whether that was on purpose or for reasons beyond your control. But generally, we can say that the rite of passage from high school to beyond high school involves a prom in one way or another, and that is part of the American culture. In other countries, they may not have such a ceremony. I was raised in England, and when I graduated high school, I got to go to a boring assembly where the headmistress gave speeches and there was no prom, no one walked across a stage or received any special accolades, no one got a certificate, It was a different culture. Most people don't really stop to think that their culture is an indoctrination until they run up against someone from a different culture, which is happening more and more in today's world. And this in itself is helping us to see more clearly where society has shaped our beliefs, rather than forming beliefs for ourselves based on our experience of life. So summing up, third density is about survival on all the physical levels. I talked earlier about the first 3 chakras being rooted in the physical and the upper 3 being connected to the spiritual. Let's talk about the heart now. The heart chakra is called the 4th chakra. It is in the middle between the physical chakras and the spiritual chakras. And so it's like a gateway or a connector that connects the material world we live in to the spiritual world. While we live in the physical world, we also live in the spiritual world, but many of us don't realize this or don't acknowledge it or don't give it much thought. The heart connects the mind, the ego, the physical and non-physical. Our heart is a brain as well, and this is now acknowledged by many scientists, and there is lots of proofs of that. So our heart is very important, and it does a lot more than just pumping blood around our bodies. Whenever we talk about the heart, we talk about love. The heart is where we hold our feelings, our love energy. We talk about breaking our heart when we're in pain, or our heart bursting when we're full of love. Above the heart and below the throat chakra is another secondary chakra called the compassionate heart chakra or the high heart. Its color is green turquoise or pink, and it resonates to compassion. I've often had people point to this area of their body when they're in treatment for Reiki, and they say, "It hurts here." And I ask them, is there someone in your life having a hard time, and that's tugging on your heartstrings because you're in empathy with them? And they often say yes. So this is the area of the body just above the heart where we often feel the suffering that is caused by being close to someone, by loving someone who is having a hard time in their life and feeling sorry for them or worried about them. The heart is also the chakra that moves out of balance when we give too much of ourselves to someone else. It's very common for mothers of small children to have low heart energy, and also for adults who spend a lot of time caring for an elderly parent, leaving no time in their lives to follow their own heart's calling or indulge themselves in the fun of life. So this is an important chakra, and it resonates with 4th density, or the 4th dimension that people talk about when they say we're ascending into 4th dimension reality. Earth, or Gaia, has her own energy. She is also ascending. Eventually, Earth will not be a place that supports humans in 3rd density energy, just as there are no humans here that are below 3rd density energy. I know this is hard to understand, but eventually Earth will just be a society of 4th dimensional beings or higher. Let's back up a little bit. Everything vibrates. Everything has energy. Energy is consciousness. So everything has consciousness. Rocks and minerals have energy. They all resonate with different frequencies. This is how jewelers are able to tell the difference between a real diamond and a fake diamond, or a natural emerald and a lab-created one. Each type of mineral gives out a different frequency, and you can measure that. We say that the rocks and the minerals are in 1st density. They have awareness, but it's not awareness like we think of awareness. They have a very primitive consciousness by our standards, but they do have it. There are people who can communicate with the rocks and minerals. I've been able to do it myself on occasion. I don't regularly hear the minerals talking to me, but I have 1 or 2 special ones that have let me know where they wish to be placed around the house. And there are others that work with me in my Reiki sessions, and I know they're working with me. I know this sounds crazy if you've never heard of this before, but it's real. And on your awakening journey, you will meet people who can hear the minerals, the crystals, and you might be one of them. Animals and plants are 2nd density awareness. If it sounded crazy that people can talk with rocks, there are plenty of people who can communicate with animals and plants. And if you're not one of them, you will certainly run into them as you go through your version of the awakening journey. I had a puppy. Well, I still have him, and now he's 7. But when he was a puppy, he was very depressed. I could just tell. So since I couldn't ask him directly why he was so sad, I took him to a shaman, a member of the Cherokee people, who was an animal communicator. And he was able to ask Sammy why he was so depressed. He uncovered all kinds of information and told me things about Sammy that he couldn't possibly have known, such as the fact that Sammy didn't like the beef liver I'd been giving him, and he hated drinking out of plastic bowls and wanted me to provide only metal bowls for his water. At that time, my son was living in the house with me, and my son loved to cook bacon. I was a vegetarian back then, so I never ate bacon, and when Sammy was a puppy, my son didn't share his food with the dog. The shaman told me that Sammy loved the smell of bacon. Even though he never got to eat it, he really enjoyed smelling it. The shaman didn't know anything about my family living arrangements, or that I was vegetarian, or that my son cooked bacon. The shaman also told me to give Sammy homeopathy. This was really wild because my son was a qualified homeopath, and he was able to help me find the right remedy for Sammy. Sammy wasn't just depressed, you see, he also had arthritis, even though he was just a puppy, and he had difficulty climbing stairs because of that. Sammy got completely better on homeopathy, and he became much happier following the changes I made that the shaman recommended. Watching Sammy get better was one of the reasons I decided to become a homeopath, and today I help humans get healthy using homeopathy, Reiki, and spiritual counseling. But let's get back to what we were talking about, the densities of reality. We can think of these densities as levels of awareness. In second density, most of the animals and plants have a sort of community awareness. A lot of animals move in herds and packs, and they see themselves not so much as individuals, but as part of a collective. This is why dogs just love to be around other dogs, and whenever they can, they form a pack. And sheep and cows and horses and deer, they all like to move in herds whenever they get the opportunity. And it's said that they communicate with each other telepathically because they are so connected into each other. And we know that the trees, too, form networks in their roots. And if one tree in one part of the forest gets infected by a pest, then it sends a signal through the root network, and other trees in more distant parts of the forest hear that signal, receive that signal, and they produce chemical coatings that protect them in advance of the pest infestation. So trees also operate in community. When I'm walking Sammy and there's another dog coming towards us, Sammy will stop and look at the other dog, and sometimes the other dog will stop and look at Sammy, and they aren't barking or making any sound, but you just know they're having a conversation with each other. When deer move in herds, there is typically one of the herd assigned as the lookout. When you approach a herd of deer on a hiking trail, you will notice that often only one of the deer is looking at you, and the rest of the deer are busy munching on the sweet, sweet grass. But if that lookout deer gets suspicious, the whole herd will run away, even though the lookout has not given any audible or visible signal, and is often the last to leave. Just observe them next time you have the opportunity. They are all in communication with each other telepathically. Also, check your dog or cat's reaction when it catches sight of its own reflection in a mirror or a window. Sometimes the dog or cat thinks that another animal is in the glass, and they try to reach out and touch it with their paw. This is because animals don't have an individuated ego. They think of themselves collectively as part of a whole, as part of a pack. Some enlightened animals realize it is themselves, and it spooks them a bit, and you get the feeling they would really rather not see themselves. They seem to be what we would think of as self-conscious. Like a 2-year-old child, they often have the same reaction. This is the beginnings of their spiritual evolution, preparing them to be 3D ready. So animals in second density do not have individuated egos to the same degree that humans do. Humans have more of a sense of self. They have self-awareness, and they want to do their own thing rather than going along blindly doing what everyone else does. Although there are those kinds of people who prefer to follow along with the crowd rather than think for themselves. And those are the people that are less likely to be spiritually awakening, because the spiritual awakening is sometimes a lonely journey, requiring us to break away from the narrative, break away from the pack, so to speak, and from the norms and so on. And so it doesn't suit those who don't like to think for themselves. Just as we humans are moving into fourth density reality, the heart center, our animals are moving into third density, into an individuated state where they will be aware of themselves as individuals and working on the next level of their soul's evolution. Have you noticed how dogs and cats are much more human-like than they were 50 years ago? They've gone from being mere animals in the background of our lives to our best friends. If you pay attention, you can see it happening before your eyes. They are helping us raise our levels of compassion, some of them through terrible suffering and mistreatment. This is true of puppy mill dogs, mistreated horses, and our farm animals that are raised in miserable and cruel conditions. And we are also helping them to raise their vibration by treating them more like humans. We dress them up, we allow them to have their own way, their own opinions and desires. We spend more time playing with them and socializing with them than we did in years gone by. This is all part of the ascension process. The evolution through increasing levels of awareness or densities is the natural progression of the soul, and it is a cyclical event that occurs in the history of our universe. Typically, a human will have hundreds or even thousands of incarnations in one density before they are ready to move on. There are two factors that influence their readiness. One is the amount of work they've done within themselves, within their soul, and the other is the cosmic time cycle. At certain times in the universal cycle, the energies support ascension, and we are in one of those times right now. At this time, many souls are preparing for their ascension or have already made their ascension. Those who have done a lot of spiritual work in their many lifetimes may have ascended out of cycle. This is why some souls, like Jesus and Buddha, have been able to make their ascension without waiting for the end of the age. The cycle we are in now is called the precession of the equinoxes. What does that mean? The precession of the equinoxes is an astronomical event that happens once every 26,000 years or so. The solar system has a 26,000-year cycle where it passes through all the houses of the zodiac. At the end of the cycle, there is a time lag. When the sun passes from the last house of the zodiac, which is Pisces, to the first, which is Aquarius, the time lag builds up as it passes through each house. It's a little lag, and then by the end, it has a catch-up period. This is why it's called precession. Precession means going backwards. The precession lasts for 36 years. It's a catching up time, similar to the leap year, when we add a day every 4 years. So you can look up precession of the equinoxes if you're interested in understanding this better. It's a difficult concept to understand, so I've tried to simplify it, but it is a real thing. It's really happening, and it is acknowledged in the mainstream science, although it might not be understood in quite the same way that I'm explaining it here from the spiritual perspective. So the midpoint of the precession was 2012, which is why everyone was predicting the end of the world in 2012. What really occurred was the end of an age, a yuga, as it's called in the Indian Vedas. The Mayan calendar was built around these astrological events. The actual time it takes to pass through all the houses of the zodiac, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, is 25,772 years. I've seen different numbers there, by the way, in different places, so it's hard to pin it down exactly, but it's approximately 26,000. The Aquarian age is the beginning of the new yuga, the new cycle, a golden age. Some people are saying we are already in the age of Aquarius, while others argue that technically it starts in 2030. So I don't think it's worth getting hung up on a 36-year period within a 26,000-year cycle. So to me, it's not really important whether we are in the golden age or whether we are at the beginning of it or whether we are still moving out of the age of Pisces. But what we do know for sure is that the shift is already upon us. We are already shifting, and we can witness that in our daily lives. And so during this time, during the precession, there is like a window of opportunity, like a gateway, where many of us who have been doing our work here on Earth are ready to make that shift. The solar system is in perpetual motion, and it moves in a spiral throughout space. Currently, it's passing through an area of space known as the interstellar cloud or the photon belt. This is a region of very high frequencies, such as gamma rays, cosmic rays, and X-rays. And as we move through this area, the frequency and vibration of the planets in the solar system is changing. All of the planets are going through global warming. Higher vibrations are pouring into the Earth, and this is assisting her ascension. If you study planetary science, you will see that all the planets in the solar system have been going through climate change in recent years. It's not just Earth. There are many factors influencing climate change on Earth, and the photon belt is absolutely one of them. We have been through and continue to pass through a transitional time of great chaos in Earth's history. Chaos always precedes the emergence of a new framework. Chaos leads to a new order. The new framework we as light workers are building now is the new golden age. The indigo children came in at the turn of the century and throughout the 20th century to break down the doors of occulted Satanism and authoritarian control. I personally identify as an indigo. With our rebellious spirits, we refuse to do things the way they have always been done and broke out of the matrix of the programmed mind. We indigos are a tough bunch whose job is to pave the way for the gentle souls that started coming in as crystal children in the 2000s. The crystal children carry the new crystalline template rather than the carbon template of their ancestors. This means they have expanded human abilities, expanded DNA. You will see this in their skills and abilities, which far exceed what their grandparents were capable of at the same age. The indigos made it safe to be sensitive, kind, and gentle, to be psychically aware, and to be ambassadors of love, because that's the mission of the crystal children. Many of the children being born today are not here for this world that we live in today, but for the world that is becoming, the world that is emerging out of the dark, chaotic times we are living in. They are the children that will populate the golden age with their children. And so you can see that between the precession of the equinoxes and the passage of our solar system through the interstellar cloud, there is a coming together of many strange forces that are shaping our world, and this in turn is influencing our DNA. After all, we are made of light, and so light frequencies and other frequencies from the universe definitely affect us. You can observe these changes very clearly in our young people. How many toddlers do you know who are much more proficient than you were at the same age? If you're an older person listening to this, there is a big difference between what toddlers could do in the 1900s versus what they can do in the 2000s. This influence is manifested in all different ways. Some are able to read really early. Others have command of their physical body and they can rollerblade, ski, skateboard, etc. Still others are child prodigies who can play the piano or violin or sing with such maturity that it's hard to believe they are children. Some children can remember their past lives or have awareness of their mission of love here on earth, and they can talk with their spirit guides or see their dead grandparents. This is all due to the changing times that I'm talking about here. Our DNA is expanding. If you've heard people talking about the carbon-based body becoming the crystalline body, this is exactly what we mean. The crystalline body is the waking up of more strands of DNA within us, so that we have more powers than previously, more ability, more skill, more remembrance of what we've learned in past lives. We are becoming superhumans. Jesus had expanded DNA way beyond our own. This was his special gift and the reason why he was able to perform miracles, which are really feats of higher consciousness. So getting back to the fourth chakra, the densities of fourth chakra relate to the heart, and in particular, love and compassion. We can call it the energy of the compassionate heart. Love is a unifying force in the universe. Most of us know what it is to love our children, our parents, or our partners. But it's hard to expand that love to everyone. Most of us have people in our lives that we definitely don't love. Even though on some spiritual level we know that we should love everyone, in practice it's difficult to do that. So to get to absolute love, unconditional love, from basic love of family and friends, it's necessary to move through compassion. Have you ever met someone who you definitely did not get along with? But then after some time being thrown together with this person, you learn something about them, some hardship they went through in their childhood, or some tragedy they experienced in their life. And you somehow start to develop different feelings towards them. You build compassion for them, and you see them in a more tolerant light, because you come to understand that they are a product of their experience, and you realize they are in defensive mode or protective mode because they've been very hurt. This is what the compassionate heart is all about, learning to accept people even when you don't know their story, because somewhere in there you know they have a story. Everyone has a story. Everyone deserves compassion. Everyone. This is the lesson of fourth density. In third density, we don't believe that everyone deserves compassion. We believe in punishing people, in putting them to death, in seeking revenge on them, and judging them, and so on, ostracizing them, ridiculing them. But in fourth density, we learn to understand that this is a low vibration of thinking. Now, I'm not talking about letting all the criminals out of prison or encouraging psychopaths to remain psychopaths. In fourth density, we seek to heal people rather than judge or punish them. That's the energy we're talking about. This is actually the classic line of most romantic movies. At first, girl meets boy, and there is a friction or a dislike. And then, through the twists and turns of fate, the two of them are forced to spend time together and gradually get to know each other. A very common plot is for at least one of them to have lost their parents early in life. In a Hallmark movie, this is often the case. In real life, the tragedy can extend to more complex scenarios, like being sexually or emotionally abused, or being raised by alcoholic parents or drug addicts. In the end, of course, the couple end up in love, and so hate turns to love, because love and hate are actually two emotions on the same spectrum. This is the law of polarity. Hate is at one end and love is at the other. And as we get to know people and learn their story, we are often able to move that needle from the low end to the high end. But you can see that the movement of that needle is often driven by compassion. Compassion is the empathy we feel when we hear someone's sad story. We suddenly understand why they are the way they are, and we have sympathy for that. We feel sorry, because deep down in our bones, we all resonate with hardship. Sometimes that hardship is from this life, and sometimes it's from previous lives, but it resonates in the cells of our bodies. And in the end, we learn to love each other more deeply. So this is the energy of the heart chakra of fourth density, learning to expand our capacity to love through compassion. If there is a God, and he loves everyone equally, this is the only thing that makes sense, that everyone deserves compassion. Not just the good guys, not just the loving guys, not just the happy, helpful guys, but the ugly guys, the bad guys, the psychos. They deserve compassion too, because they are not that way on purpose. They became that way through their life experience, which was not good. This is what heart-centered compassion is all about. It's about healing that rift that creates division amongst us. That might mean healing individuals, including ourselves. Now, this sometimes causes complications. When we move into fourth density, we are drawn to find ways to be of service to others. That's the calling of the heart, to serve humanity. We want to switch our dull jobs serving corporate interests to more interesting and personally rewarding work, where we are doing something of value to humanity, or perhaps for animals, or nature, or for our planet. Many of us in recent times, and this includes me by the way, have switched from higher paying corporate jobs to lower paying but more meaningful jobs. So in my case, I gave up my career in engineering to become a healer and exchanged my high salary for the reward of working with people and helping people recover their health and their emotional well-being. And I've worked with many others who are doing or looking to do the same thing or something similar. And I've trained many people through my Reiki classes to be able to do exactly that. And I've worked with several people who have given up jobs in manufacturing facilities or warehouses and stuff like that for jobs working with animals or people, again being of service to humanity. I've also worked with many individuals who have chosen to relocate so they can be with an aging parent, or aging parents who have relocated to be closer to their children. Or some people have just been called to move across the country to use their energy in a different environment. That happened to me. I was called to move from Colorado Springs to Chattanooga, Tennessee. And it's, I have to say, a very different energy, moving from the high vibration of the mountains at 6,000 feet above sea level to a much denser energy here in Tennessee, closer to sea level and closer to some lower vibrating energies that are here. And it was a big transition for me, but I felt called to do it. And I must say, I really like it here. I'm really having a good time, but that's besides the point. But anyway, this is all driven by our need to offer more love to the world as we raise our vibration. So here is the complication. Some of us have much less money as a result of our job change, and we haven't yet found the way to increase our income. That will come in time, but it is a temporary hardship. For some people, it might be a permanent hardship, but their life is improved in other ways, and so they're willing to make the compromise. There is another more serious fallout too. Sometimes we become so focused on helping other people that we forget to help ourselves, and we can end up having dull and boring personal lives because we're giving everything we have to other people. In the healing professions, we teach and learn a lot about self-care. So not everyone learns about the importance of self-care. Self-care means sometimes being selfish. I will meet a mother whose adult child is having a hard time, and the mother still worries and supports her adult child financially, and this creates a great strain on her own happiness. And I have nothing against helping your child if you have the money, but worrying about them, being emotionally involved in their trauma, is something else. When we worry about someone, we deplete our energy, and we cast an energetic hook over that other person. They are sitting energetically in our worry energy instead of in our love energy. It's better not to worry about them because we have ourselves to worry about, and it's their job to worry about themselves and our job to worry about ourselves. Otherwise, we are codependents in their drama. Even if they are children, it is still better to love them through their hardships than to worry about how they will manage. They will manage because it's their life purpose to pass through that hardship, just as you have passed through your hardships, in order for their soul to grow and evolve. If you, as a parent or even a friend or a spouse, constantly take care of them, then how will they learn the lesson that their soul sent them here to learn? In some ways, you might be delaying them from learning the lesson. So I'm not saying abandon them or anything like that, but as you find yourself moving through the fourth density energy of compassionate love, remember to take time out for yourself. Find ways to replenish your energy and do things that are pure fun for you. This helps to avoid burnout, and this is where fifth density energy begins to drift into our awareness, or I should say, our awareness begins to drift into fifth density energy. A lot of people who have family members that are suffering feel guilty for having fun in their own life. There is a lot of guilt in this society. But think of it this way, if you are depressed and depleted, this is the energy you are offering back, a depleted and depressed energy. If you are in your joy and you know what it is to have fun in life, then that is the energy you are offering them, the energy of light and laughter and fun. And you can role model to them how to do that for themselves. You can role model to them that it's possible for them to have a lighter and happier life. When you can start to do this, you will actually be moving into fifth density energy, because fifth density energies are about spiritual wisdom. Spiritual wisdom has to do with many things, but one of those things is that unrelenting, compassionate heart energy leads to burnout on all levels of our being. It leads to sacrifice and martyrdom, and that's kind of shifts us back again into third density energy. When we develop spiritual wisdom, we realize that being selfish is a way of loving ourselves and being kind to ourselves and allowing ourselves to replenish our depleted energy and our depleted happiness. As we practice self-care and self-love in this way, we begin to dip our toes in fifth density energy, and we become shining lights in the darkness, for those souls who are still awakening or who will never awaken, because we start to radiate joy and happiness into the collective consciousness. And that way, everyone gets to enjoy a little bit of it. And it's like a snowball effect. It will grow as it ripples out, and more people understand that this is a great energy to be in. Whatever emotional state you find yourself in, you are radiating that energy into the universe. When you are around a depressed person, you know it, don't you? And when you are around a grounded and centered person, you know that too, don't you? You can feel that energetically from them. You can hear it in their voice. You can see it in their face, in the expression that they wear. And you can sense it in their energy field when you interact with them. So in order to support your ascending frequency, you need to become a little bit selfish and start dropping all those hooks and cords that keep you tied to the lower vibrations through relationships that drain you. So that's 5D energy. And don't worry if it doesn't make sense. It will make sense, and it will occur to you intuitively as you continue on your path. During this ascension times, some people talk about there being a great solar flash or a pole shift or some great event. They call it the event horizon, something dramatic that's going to happen. Now, I don't know if any of that is true. It might and it might not be. I'm not going to hazard a guess on that or try and understand that. What I do know is that the shift is already in progress. There won't be a moment in time when it begins because there has been a gradual shifting. And so I believe that some people are already in 4D. And as I said before, we may be shifting in and out. We may not be in 4D all of the time every day. But over time, as things stabilize, that will be the norm. And those who are not ready for fourth dimension, we don't have to worry about them. First of all, we don't know who they are because we're not the judge of that. But if we sense that some of the newer souls might not be making the ascension with us, we don't have to worry about them because the universe is taking care of them, and they will be able to continue their life lessons and their soul's evolution through third density, potentially on a different planet. Because Earth will only be accommodating fourth density human life as time goes by. So I know this raises a lot of questions, and I don't have all the answers to the questions, and I don't know if anybody has all the answers to the questions, but I do believe that this is a time of greatness. This is a great time on Earth, and that's why so many souls, over 8 billion currently, have chosen to incarnate here at this time, because we want to be a part of this great event. We want to be the great light rising. Okay, so that was a lot of information. I'm out of time for today, and I hope you got something out of this episode. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves this week. You are the light that we need in this world, and together we are the great light rising.